Hey everyone, it's Dr. K. So I've been talking about neutral spine and how the body wants good movement variability. We want options to deal with the unexpected, which is the real world. So ultimately what I'm talking about is we want everything to do its job in the right place at the right time. Whether you're squatting in the gym or running on a trail, you're cycling, or even maybe you're just playing with your kids, you're chasing them down in the backyard. So what we need to do is allow the nervous system, ample opportunity to get everything to do its job in the right time, in the right place, which means one of the key things I look at when someone comes in the door is what are the foot pressures like? Because everything starting from the foot is going to influence the lower leg, it's going to influence in front and behind the knee, it's going to influence the glute and the hip, and then ultimately go up the chain in the spine. So especially if you're talking about foot pressures, you're thinking about how it influences the listening foot. If you haven't seen my post on listening foot, go give it a look for context. But basically it's given us massive clues about how a patient's nervous system is reacting to the experience of working. And I've worked with active adults and athletes, in and out of the gym who are serious about, producing force, explosive force, and throwing around serious amounts of weight. And what I see is that they start to kind of lose that variability and they start just kind of choosing one part of their foot to work with. They don't have good options. So as the hip flexes, basically your weight is going to go towards your heel. And as your hip extends, it's going to shift towards your midfoot and ultimately at your forefoot. So if you're ever struggling to kind of remember the foot pressures, just think of an exaggerated running gait. With maximal hip flexion, basically whenever I come down into my heel strike, I'm gonna have my weight back towards my heel. But as I drive through into my next step, I'm starting to create extension in my hip, which means my weight's going towards my midfoot and forefoot. So with the Olympic lifting, one of the big things that they do really well is they look at those foot pressures. Remember, they need explosive power, and they need that power to produce quick movement, and they really need everything to be mechanically sound, they need it to count, and they need to be very energy efficient because they're throwing around all that weight. So whenever they're maybe pulling off the floor, the first pull, their hip is flexed, so the weight is back towards the heels, and that makes sense. But as they start to come into the second pull off the floor, their hip starts to extend, and that's where the weight starts to shift onto their midfoot and ultimately onto their forefoot. So that makes sense too, because remember, hip extension means we're rolling onto midfoot and forefoot. So as you start to kind of play around with this at home, you can do one of two things. You can take just a little bit of time and think about what your foot pressures are doing whenever you're moving around or you're working at home doing just your normal daily activities. Or better yet, if you're doing things like more functionally challenging activities in the gym, before you start to move that weight, stop, reassess, like where's the pressure on my foot and where does it need to be during the next part of my move? That's more mechanically sound, that's more interesting to your nervous system to help prepare your body. Because again, remember, everything that starts at the foot starts to influence lower leg, starts to influence upper leg, into glute, into hip. So, if you have any questions about this, shoot me a message or an email. I love solving difficult movement-based problems. So stay strong, inspire others.